I was the unforgettable first love in a domineering CEO romance. Unable to stand the male lead's need for control, I decisively broke up with him and went abroad to study. To make me regret it, he found a girl completely opposite of me to date. Hugs, passionate kisses, even bed photos, under his instruction, were continuously sent to me. When I returned to the country, he made sure I saw him getting cozy with the new girl. He sneered provocatively, "She tastes way better than you." I calmly took off my coat and draped it over the barely dressed girl, looking him straight in the eye. Is this the best you can do? Resorting to cheap tricks like these? Chapter 01. I received a new photo. It was Anthony and his new girlfriend being intimate. The girl was sitting on his lap, her legs tightly wrapped around his waist. The photo didn't fully capture their position, but the atmosphere was suggestively steamy, leaving much to the imagination. From what my friend had said before, I could tell the girl probably didn't want this kind of photo to be seen by others. I replied with a few reaction memes and re-uploaded the picture. Then I typed in the chat, "Anthony's at it again. I want half the cut." My friend had completely flipped her schedule and was now practically living in the same time zone as me in the US. Almost the moment I hit send, she replied, "Relax. This money's insanely easy to make. If Anthony ever found out, he'd probably lose his mind." The breakup between us had been anything but peaceful. He was obsessively controlling, something I couldn't handle. When I told him this, Anthony's face darkened instantly. He smashed the birthday gift I had given him. "I'm controlling? That's because I freaking care about you. Even if another woman stood in front of me naked, I wouldn't give her a second glance." "Who is it? What guy did you fall for? You come back and immediately start a fight with me?" His eyes turned cold as he glared at me, like he was trying to read the truth off my face. "No, calm down." I reached over and buttoned up his shirt for him. "I just don't like other people interfering with my choices. What I wear is my own business. Don't use love to manipulate me. That's not love. Love isn't supposed to hurt. It's not needing his approval for every outfit. It's not having to respond to his texts 24/7. I had more important things to do with my life. But Anthony clearly wasn't listening. He grabbed my wrist and shoved me against the wall. "Which guy are you really interested in? Do you believe I can kill him?" He leaned in, about to force a kiss on me. I turned my head away and kicked him hard. Using that moment, I broke free from his grip and looked into his furious eyes. Anthony glanced down at the footprint I'd left on his shirt. His expression turned thunderous. Veins popped on his arms as he gritted his teeth and growled, "Sandra, one day you'll be begging me on your knees, and I still won't take you back." That night, Anthony stormed out and invited a bunch of scantily dressed girls to party with him. Photos started flooding my inbox from all directions. By the third day, I was on a flight to the US. Through different friends, I heard about how enraged he was, how he lost control, how he dragged everyone down into his mess. Anthony believed I had fled the country just to avoid him. But in truth, I had always planned to study abroad. The breakup just happened to coincide. I had told Anthony about this before, but clearly, he never listened. Chapter 02. Half a year after I left the country, Anthony finally stopped going crazy. He got a new girlfriend, someone completely different from me. Her looks, her vibe, her background, her personality, all of it was the opposite. I was assertive and decisive. She was delicate and obedient. I came from a loving, intact family. She had lost both her parents and was raised by a widowed elderly woman in her village. When my friend talked about the girl, she was clearly unimpressed. "Alice is nothing compared to you. Anthony's just sick of gourmet meals and wants to try some bland porridge for a change." "Huh?" I replied. "Sandra is Sandra. Alice is Alice. If you compare us like that, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to be treated like a dish. I want to be treated like a person." The core of objectifying women is stripping them of their sense of being alive. The way one treats another person is completely different from how one treats an object. My friend immediately panicked and apologized, but I cut the topic short. A few days later, I received more photos of Anthony and Alice. At first, they were just pictures of the two spending time together. The photography was well done, the lighting and shadows were beautiful. Their eyes never met in the shots, giving off a dreamy, romantic vibe. My friend explained, He paid a lot. It'd be a waste not to take the job. If I didn't do it, he'd find someone else. Babe, I'm splitting the money with you. I wanted to say, I'm rich, I'll pay you double. But when I saw the 500,000 yuan on the screen, I quietly deleted the message I was about to send. Yes, I'm rich, but I'm not stupid. Not only did Anthony hire her, he also got plenty of other people to forward the stuff to me. I negotiated an 80-20 split, 80 for me, and let them send whatever. Even if you have money, there's no need to waste it. I figured these people probably didn't care about anything except their quick cash. But the photos kept getting more intense and more explicit. From the two of them smiling at each other, to holding hands with their fingers interlaced, to Anthony tightly hugging Alice, to kissing so deeply it left a string of saliva between them, to Anthony lifting Alice onto his shoulders, and eventually the two of them lying half-naked in bed, their shoulders exposed, making it painfully obvious what had just happened. Chapter 03. Other than school, social events, and daily life. Dealing with this situation became my top side project. I didn't delete Anthony from my contacts, but my moments feed remained hidden from him. One day, my friend screenshotted something from his feed and sent it to me. She's the one. Just 5 words. Captioning a photo of Alice trying on a ring, her hand extended. Comments started pouring in underneath. For real? It's official? Looks like Anthony's finally settling down. Can't wait for Sandra to come back and shake things up. Someone replied, bet Sandra regrets everything now. She's probably catching the next flight back. Nah, Sandra's not the type to hang on to something. When she breaks up, she cuts clean. Stop fantasizing. Anthony personally replied to that one. Why bring her up? What a curse. After my friend sent it, she added, Anthony told me to send it to you. I think he's still mad that you left the country right after the breakup. I know that's not why you left, but he thinks it was. He's always been obsessed with making you regret it. But this time, I think he's actually planning to get married. I typed a single line. I'm coming back. My friend replied with a surprised question mark. I can graduate early. Everything I needed to do is done. No point staying here any longer. I'm going home. Chapter 04. What I said was true. Not a word of it was false. But somehow, there are always people who don't believe it. News of my return spread like wildfire. My phone lit up with countless red notification dots, each asking me to confirm if it was true. After I gave them a definite answer, many of them asked me the same question. Is it because of Anthony? Even though I denied it repeatedly, they still spoke as if they knew better. It's good that you're back. He really does like you. Let's say, hypothetically, there's no way someone from a background like Alice's would be accepted by him. We all move in the same circles. Heads down, eyes up, whether they genuinely want to be friends or not. At least in front of me, they all made sure to show they were on my side. But the truth was, I hadn't done anything. The moment I returned to the country, I was pushed right into Alice's position across from me. Chapter 05. There's a party tonight. It's been a while. Let's all get together. It was Calliope who sent me the message. She was the one who always chatted with me. I hadn't seen them in a long time, and without much thought, I agreed. When I arrived at the venue, Calliope came out to greet me. She glanced at me briefly. A lot of people have been waiting for you to come back and make a grand entrance. I didn't expect you to still dress so simply. I was wearing a white dress that cinched at the waist. The cut was fitted, and the design was minimal. I gave her a quick smile but didn't say anything, pulling her hand as we walked inside. The moment we stepped in, I felt eyes from all around me, subtly studying me. I glanced at Calliope, and she wore an expression of helplessness. Everyone loves gossip, you know? Well, maybe not to this extent. I bit my tongue, finally realizing why there were so many unfamiliar faces in the room. Because of Anthony. He was standing on the second floor, looking down at me from above. I only had to tilt my head slightly to meet his gaze. Anthony was wearing a black shirt, the buttons never properly fastened, exposing a patch of cool skin. The lights above him were angled, and I couldn't see his expression clearly, but I could tell he wasn't exactly happy. How is he here? Calliope waved her hands in a panic. It's not my fault. I really didn't know. They said they were preparing a surprise for you. I was just as shocked as you. At that moment, my phone buzzed with a message alert. It was from our group chat. The conversation was heating up, with different people under different avatars sending similar messages. Anthony said he wouldn't come, but his body is being honest. Anthony's just being stubborn. Even though he brought his so-called girlfriend, he can't let go of you. There were countless messages like these. I really didn't understand. What had I done wrong that made them think I would be the third party? Please don't say that. Anthony and I are truly a thing of the past. If I still liked him, I wouldn't have broken up with him. I know you all mean well, but he's got a new girlfriend now. You need to respect his relationship, respect her presence, and respect my choice. It makes me feel really uncomfortable when you say things like this. I really don't like it. After sending that, I asked Calliope to add everyone in the group. I don't know if it worked, but at least the chat was quiet for a few seconds. I lowered my gaze, and suddenly, a scene from a novel flashed in my mind. In the story, after the first love returns to the country, Anthony, who hasn't even realized his feelings for the female lead, Alice, attends the party to make Sandra regret everything. He even fails to notice that Alice is sick. At the party, he repeatedly insults Sandra, completely unaware that Alice is curled up in discomfort. After Sandra leaves in tears, Anthony immediately ditches Alice and goes to find someone else. As the male lead, even if he's awful, he still has a crowd of followers. Some girls who secretly had crushes on Anthony were already itching to make a move. If they couldn't get to Sandra, surely they could target Alice, who was vulnerable and alone. Alice was locked in her room. Her phone had only 3% battery left, and she couldn't get through to Anthony before it died. It took almost 50 hours before Anthony remembered her. Recalling that scene, I no longer hesitated and quickly made my way upstairs. Chapter 06. I was about to push the door open, but a hand suddenly blocked me. Anthony stood there, his face expressionless, his tone cold. My girlfriend is resting inside. It's rather rude of you to just barge in like this. He emphasized the words my girlfriend heavily. His gaze was cold, and his expression mirrored that. I stepped back, signaling for him to open the door. Then you open it. She's sick, Anthony sneered, his eyes filled with mockery as he looked at me. Sandra, do you really think you can fool me? Whether she's sick or not, do I need you, an outsider, to remind me? I took a deep breath, choosing not to argue further. Anthony, I don't have time for games with you. The door is locked, and Alice is still sick. I forcefully pulled his hand away and turned the doorknob. The door wouldn't open. I looked at Calliope, who had followed me. Calliope, can you find someone to open the door? She nodded, not understanding, and turned to find help. Alice, are you still awake? A faint, weak voice responded from inside the room, so quiet that even when I focused all my attention, I could barely make out the reply. My friend went to get someone. They'll open the door soon. Don't worry. I pulled out my phone and dialed emergency services. The entire time, Anthony remained silent, watching me without saying a word. Even though I turned my back to make the call, I could still feel his gaze on me. Calliope was quick, and soon brought someone to open the door. Alice was collapsed on the floor, sobbing like a little animal. Her phone was dead, but she still clutched it tightly in her hand. I reached out to touch her forehead. It was burning with fever. If she had been burning like this for hours, she'd either be dead or completely out of her mind by now. The author gave her the female lead halo, but they also gave her so much suffering just to let her gain Anthony's love. I bent down to listen to what she was saying. Her voice was weak and struggling. Grandma, Anthony, it hurts. She had never met her parents and had been raised by a widowed elderly woman in her village. In a moment like this, the only people she could think of were the deceased woman who had raised her, and the male lead whom the author had destined for her. Anthony stood at the door, his expression unreadable. Pick her up. The ambulance will be here soon. Anthony paused for a moment, and then a mocking smile appeared on his face. Sandra, is this your way of getting my attention? She's not someone you can use. I bent down, helping Alice sit up, using my knees to lift her up, and then carried her horizontally in my arms. You're overthinking it. I looked at him, speaking slowly, emphasizing every word. Someone like you doesn't deserve my effort. If the male lead were really like this, I might as well take his place. He really wasn't better than me. Calliope ran over, breathless. Babe, the doctor's here. She finally sensed the tense atmosphere and carefully stepped closer to me. Sandra, you're so strong. You've got boyfriend power. I replied. I'm a girl. You should say girlfriend power. There's no need to make a big deal out of defining the differences between men and women. If you're a woman, whatever you are, that's what being a woman means. If you're strong, you're a strong woman. If you're delicate, you're a delicate woman. If you eat a lot, you're a woman with a big appetite. If you eat little, you're a woman with a small appetite. That's all there is to it. Anthony's gaze darkened, his expression icy. Sandra, you've gone too far. My patience with you is limited. Chapter 07. To get Alice help faster. I rushed downstairs holding her. My high heels almost sparked with every step. Calliope was running behind me. It wasn't until we got her onto the ambulance that she finally caught her breath. It seemed like Anthony was calling for you just now. You must have misheard. Calliope didn't think much of it and started chattering like a fountain. Damn it. You're wearing 8-centimeter heels, carrying a living person, and running so fast. Aren't you afraid of twisting your ankle? Not at all. After all, the female lead was in my hands. I thought to myself, feeling secretly relieved, seeing me lost in thought. Staring at Alice, Calliope leaned over and whispered, if it were me, would you run this fast? Before I could answer, she quickly continued, no, you must care about her more than you care about me. You should be running even faster. A nurse nearby was visibly annoyed and spoke up. Be quiet. Calliope pouted but didn't say anything else. I squeezed her hand and whispered in her ear. Of course, I would. That made her smile again. Chapter 08. As the organizer of the gathering, Calliope had to go back to wrap things up. Watching her run back and forth, I felt a little guilty, but Calliope waved it off like it was nothing. We're good friends, right? You've never minded me being clumsy. I pinched her cheek. Calliope was a little slow to catch on. When she was 3, she could barely string words together. And even then, it was just one word at a time. Her personality was pure, and she was often tricked. People would say she was a bit silly, but I found her adorable. I once heard that some little animals were born as humans for the first time, so they still carried traits of their previous animal form, making them seem clueless. She was obedient, listening to whatever anyone told her, always looking at me with concentration. In the novel, I was the CEO's first love, later becoming the malicious second female lead who couldn't get the man she loved. She was my little follower, my blind admirer, but in reality, she was my friend. That's why she was willing to do so much for me. Nice performance. Anthony showed up late. He leaned against the doorframe, a malicious smile on his face, clapping lazily. You really went to all these lengths just to get my attention. I stopped smiling. Someone like Anthony had probably done this hundreds of times, always with a sinister and cunning mind. That's why he was so insufferable. I have a fear of crowded spaces. Anthony raised an eyebrow, clearly not understanding what I was saying. He just watched me with interest, as though he were admiring a painting. I hate people like you, with hundreds of hidden motives. I'm not as despicable as you think. Just take care of her. I stood up, ready to leave, but Anthony suddenly stepped forward, slamming the door shut with a swift move to block my way. He lowered his head, and his hot breath washed over me, causing me to instinctively take a step back. Sandra, are you jealous? Do you remember what I told you back then? Even if you begged me on your knees, I would never take you back. He said it with certainty, his arm muscles tense under his shirt, like they were about to explode at any moment. I couldn't help but laugh. Sorry. This is a hospital. Don't be shy about seeing a doctor. Anthony stared at me deeply. Then, slowly, he spoke, his tone carrying a sense of inevitability. Sandra, I'm getting married. I stopped in my tracks and turned back to look at Alice, who was still unconscious on the bed. Anthony, if you're not fully prepared, I suggest you reconsider. But if you're completely sure, then take good care of her. I still don't understand why the female lead in these stories has to face so much suffering and hardship to get the love she wants. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be loved. There's nothing wrong with bravely pursuing the person you like, choosing to weather storms together. If the female lead is even slightly confused, she gets mercilessly criticized by the readers. But the male lead always seems to be exempt from this. When a playboy changes, he gets praised. When he's been cold for so long and shows a little tenderness, he gets praised too. A man, as long as he's somewhat good-looking and has a little money, even if he sleeps around with different women or commits violence and cold-blooded acts, as long as you set him up with a lover, someone will always be ready to defend him. But women don't have this privilege. Alice. I hope you can wake up soon. Chapter 09. I turned left after leaving the ward and found the nurse's station. If the patient in room 3 needs anything, you can call me. I wrote my number on a piece of white paper. She looked at me in surprise. Calling that number might not get anyone, but if you call mine, I'll definitely pick up. Anthony had already arranged for someone to put his number in the contact list, but I knew he always pushed Alice's calls down the list. Many unanswered calls, many unreturned messages. This part of the plot in the novel also gave birth to several emotional moments. Alice in the hospital, Anthony by Sandra's side. If I didn't know, it would have been one thing, but I did know, and I couldn't just stand by. I smiled at her. Sorry to trouble you. I really didn't mean to add to your workload. I'll write a letter of appreciation for you later. The nurse smiled sweetly in return. Thank you. Chapter 10. For several days, no one contacted me. It wasn't until Calliope and I were out shopping that she suddenly asked, Sandra, did you know Anthony and Alice are about to get engaged? I know now. The models, wearing the clothes we had selected, showcased them for us one by one. I pointed out two that I didn't like much. I'll take everything else except those two. What about you? If there's anything you like, I'll buy it for you. Calliope gave me a bear hug. You're the best. I won't be polite then. I laughed and shook my head, hugging her back. When we left the mall, Calliope had a somewhat upset expression. What's wrong? You look angry. She handed me her phone. I looked down, and the first post on her WeChat moments was, just saw Sandra crying in her sister's arms while shopping. She looked so pitiful. The photo was from when Calliope rushed to me and I hugged her back. Because I had my head down, I looked especially downcast. There were all sorts of comments. At this time, I can't help but wonder, is it because of Anthony's engagement? Didn't Sandra say in the group chat she wasn't bothered by it? Let's not jump to conclusions. You can't fake it. What's true will eventually show. Let's wait and see. What a show. You guys coming to drink? Anthony's here too. Let's talk in the WeChat group. After I finished reading, Calliope quickly opened the group chat to show me. The chat was already buzzing with activity. I wasn't in this group, but their conversation became even more brazen. Haha. I'm a pretentious coquette too. I totally get Sandra. She's just pretending, probably close to dying of anger by now. Aw. I've always disliked her, always pretending to be indifferent, but she's just acting high and mighty. Don't be too harsh. Sandra's a good person. Support. Do you think I can slip in and win her over? Haha. She's really pretty. Good luck with that. If Anthony sees this, he'll be furious. No way. Anthony's almost getting married. Are they both after him? Sandra's so pretty. Isn't it nice to have someone on the side? Alice probably doesn't care. Like brother. Like sister. I forced myself to keep reading, my brow furrowing. The comments weren't just from men, but also women. It seemed like they didn't realize that such comments would eventually come back to bite them, and that included themselves. These people are horrible. I'm going to find them. Calliope was furious. In the old domineering CEO novels, as the second female lead, my family background wasn't bad. My family could even rival the male leads. This allowed the later forced marriage plot to unfold smoothly. All these years, I had been sailing smoothly. They had never dared to be so shameless in front of me. No need. Backstabbing and gossip can't hurt me. Why don't they dare face me head on? Because they're useless. People like that. I don't even care about them. I was about to console Calliope when a new picture popped up in the group chat, making me pause. I clicked on it. It was one of the photos Anthony had them send me earlier. Only this time, Alice's clothing was even more revealing, with hickeys all over her chest. Under the dazzling lights, the tears in her eyes shimmered like a pool of water. Her brows were furrowed, and her expression was filled with pain and humiliation. The group chat exploded. Is this something I can watch without paying? Watch it. Anthony's generous. He doesn't disappoint the brothers. But honestly, this Alice is something else. So, is she using her body to get ahead? Can't deny. She does look kind of good when she cries. A lump of anger rose in my throat. I quickly changed my tone. Let's go and see her. Chapter 11. The group chat had sent a location. It was easy to find. I walked with Calliope, and suddenly I heard someone shout. Sandra really showed up. When we pushed open the door to the private room, Anthony had just lifted his head from Alice's body. His shirt was a mess, with several buttons undone. Even his pants hung loosely on him. Anthony squinted with satisfaction, as if sizing me up, from head to toe. His gaze was slow and lazy. This kind of inspection, as if I were merchandise, made me uncomfortable. After a long pause, he seemed to finally recognize my face and gave a sneer. I knew it was intentional. I turned my eyes away and looked at Alice. Compared to him, Alice seemed very uneasy. She desperately covered her chest, trying to make herself less noticeable, but it was impossible to hide. I immediately saw it beneath her torn shirt. Her skin was covered with numerous bite marks, from her neck to her chest. It looked painful. Her short skirt was pressed against her thighs, barely covering her, and any shorter would expose her. This outfit was forced on her by Anthony. In the novel, Anthony made her wear those clothes again and again, then tore them off, over and over. Alice's tears and dignity seemed to have been completely erased in this endless cycle. Seeing where my gaze fell, Anthony pulled Alice into his arms. He casually kissed her lips, meeting my cold gaze. Anthony smiled. She tastes way better than you. Sandra, you just can't keep up. You're really boring. The room erupted in loud laughter. He had lipstick marks from Alice on his lips, bright and vivid. Alice's face was pale, like a fragile little white flower swaying in the wind. My heart tightened. I quickly took off my jacket and draped it over Alice's disheveled form. She clung to it as if it were a lifeline, wrapping herself up tightly. Thank you. Thank you. Alice's voice was hoarse. She had probably cried herself hoarse. Not a single tear left to shed. Is this all you know how to do? These low tricks? I calmly looked at Anthony. Anthony said nothing, his eyes drifting down to my waist. Under my suit jacket, I was only wearing a camisole. Sandra, are you trying to seduce me? Try it, please me. He leaned back lazily, his eyes dropping to my chest, his meaning clear. I almost laughed in anger, snorting coldly. You're a little down there, but your tone is so big. Anthony's face instantly changed. His expression twisted into one of rage, like a mad dog ready to bite. He kicked the champagne tower on the table, sending it crashing. Sandra, do you have no shame? I pulled Alice up and stepped back to avoid the shards from cutting us. Calliope, please help me look after her. Calliope nodded in a daze, as if given some important task, and quickly hid Alice behind her. I turned to face Anthony, speaking calmly. I just want you to understand that when you objectify and sexualize women, women can do the same to you. And I haven't even mentioned how you're such a petty, vindictive, hot-headed, and arrogant fool. You're basically a lunatic. Oh wait, lunatics might even be better than you. Being my ex-boyfriend isn't because you're good. It's because your ancestors were lucky. Your ancestors won't protect you forever, but your abilities will always be this bad. Think knocking over cups is impressive? Think you're skilled? Learn from me. When faced with someone like you, not only can I refrain from knocking over cups, I can calmly explain the situation. Now, that's impressive. Anthony suddenly stood up, veins bulging in his neck from the anger, his expression dark as he walked towards me, afraid of the risk to Calliope and Alice. I stepped forward to meet him. If you dare hit me, that's intentional harm. My lawyer's right outside. If you step outside this bar, There are reporters waiting for you. Anthony, try it. And as for you all, standing by and watching, I'll make sure my parents cancel all business dealings with your family when I get back. I'll also let the heads of your families know the reason why. It was clear that Anthony heard me. His fist was clenched tightly, but he didn't move. As soon as the words were out, the people watching the drama began speaking up, trying to mediate. His anger was quickly reduced to just a fraction. Anthony wasn't the same Anthony from the novel, the one who monopolized everything and ruined my family. His eyes were bloodshot, but there was a slight calmness to him now. He shifted his focus to Alice. Alice, who allowed you to come over? Come back. Chapter 12. Anthony stared fixedly at Alice. Calliope hid her behind her, her voice trembling. Don't look. I walked back to Calliope's side and took her hand. Alice, do you want me to take you away? I can help you pay off the debt. Although her grandmother had passed away, the treatment expenses before her death had left Alice with a debt of over $1 million. Anthony used this as leverage, forcing Alice, who had just graduated and was at a dead end, to sign an agreement. He paid off Alice's debt, and in return, Alice became his woman, available whenever he called. The penalty for breaking the agreement was in the millions. Alice was completely unable to repay it, but the agreement, in fact, wasn't legally binding. It was an invalid clause. Alice seemed moved, pulling her coat tighter. Last chance. Come over here. Anthony's violent voice came through, and Alice trembled in fear. I'm scared. She choked up, tears streaming down her face as if they couldn't stop. I didn't release Calliope's hand, guiding her toward the door. Alice lifted her head and looked at me, pleading. It was the typical trait of the little white flower heroines, weak, hesitant, and fearful. I had to force her to make a choice. Last chance. Will you come with me? If you miss this opportunity, there won't be another. I can't save you every time. Right now, you have the power to choose to leave with me. Fighting for your rights is your duty as someone with rights. So, what will you choose? Both Anthony and I were watching her. Alice bit her lip, instinctively wrapping herself tighter, her unease clear. Her fingers brushed against my suit jacket, and the unfamiliarity of the clothes made her pause for a moment. It seemed she made a final decision, closing her eyes and charging toward me. I choose. I pulled her behind me and smiled at Anthony. Sorry, but I'm taking her with me. I was betting that Anthony wouldn't dare do anything to me. And indeed, he didn't. I couldn't help but silently applaud myself. After all, Sandra, was born to change this world. Chapter 13. 2 days later, I brought the contract to find Alice. She still had the posture of a scared little bird, hiding as soon as she saw someone. When she heard my voice, she finally dared to open the door. Miss Sandra, is there something you need from me? I can help you with Anthony, but there are conditions. Take a look at this. I handed her the prepared contract. Alice clearly seemed scared, her fingers trembling uncontrollably. After quickly scanning the contract, she looked at me in disbelief. Why are you being so nice to me? This contract didn't offer anything trivial. It stated that I would sponsor Alice to go abroad and study design, covering all expenses during her studies. The condition was that once she graduated, she would work for my company with a salary. For her, this was nothing but a win-win situation, because I see potential in your future, and I want to invest in you. I've seen the design drafts you've done. They have real talent. Of course, the female lead in a novel couldn't be without accomplishments. The author gave Alice the ability to design as her golden finger. It might not exactly be a golden finger, because effort itself is a form of talent. Alice had always worked hard to nurture her gift. Unfortunately, in the original story, the author gave her that ability just so Alice could design wedding rings and dresses for her and Anthony. But I saw her greater potential. I hoped that her value would be shown under the spotlight, displayed in a showcase, and placed on a bigger stage, not under a man's control. Alice looked at me with red eyes. Thank you. You really are as good as they said. They said you're Anthony's unforgettable first love, and I think they were right. I smiled faintly. You don't need to use formalities with me. We're the same. Alice shook her head, her voice tinged with bitterness. How can we be the same? You're a rich young lady, and I'm just a child without parents. I thought of the descriptions in the novel and gently held her hand. You don't mind if I hold your hand, right? Come sit down. I want to show you something. She looked at me in surprise, nodding blankly and following me. It took me calling her 3 times before she snapped out of it. I showed her 2 photos that had been circulating online. One was of a beautifully dressed woman leaning on a sofa, her slender legs looking long and graceful, leaving one feeling sympathy for her. The other was of a woman in tight pajamas, lying on the sofa, completely without any grace. The comments section was filled with playful memes, such as, "The CEO comes home thinking, why is there half a pig lying here?" The CEO says, "Nanny, this isn't where you're supposed to sleep." The CEO won't let the nanny wake up. He's planning to throw her and the sofa out. I asked Alice, "How do you feel after seeing this?" Alice hesitated for a long time, then cautiously said, "You're a young lady, but is it okay for me to be a maid?" I nodded at her, speaking seriously. "It's not that. I just want to tell you, next time, you can take the role of the CEO. We don't have to belittle, weaken, or objectify ourselves. It's fine for netizens to joke around, but we must remember not to put ourselves in a subordinate position. You're amazing, truly incredible. You worked hard to get into university, taking care of your sick grandmother while studying, even when things got tough. You never gave up on treating her after accumulating debt. You didn't run away, but faced it head-on when I gave you the choice. You bravely chose to leave with me, which shows that you're actively seeking solutions. When I handed you the contract, you weren't upset, but pleasantly surprised, which means you know how to be grateful and have a sense of proportion. I only know you a little, but I can already list so many amazing things about you. You're incredible. Don't belittle yourself. Love yourself." Alice looked at me through teary eyes, carefully asking, "Can I hug you?" Without hesitation, I hugged her, feeling her try to hold back her tears, but she couldn't and sobbed uncontrollably. "It's okay. Cry if you need to. I have plenty of clothes, and I can always throw one away after I wear it. Cry. Your good days are ahead of you." She couldn't hold it any longer and broke down into a loud, desperate cry. I patted her back, thinking to myself, thank goodness. Since I could remember, I realized that the world I lived in was a novel. I was the male lead's first love, the second female lead who would eventually turn evil. However, I didn't know who the male lead was, as my memory was a bit blurry, until one day, I saw Anthony's face and started dating him. Scenes from the plot would occasionally pop into my mind. Anthony was handsome, but his character was truly terrible. Even if he was the male lead, I couldn't stand him. According to the storyline, I broke up with him and then, as planned, went to study in the United States. I wasn't planning on coming back so soon, but with the photos my friends kept sending me, and the scenes from the plot that kept resurfacing in my mind, I began to feel that Alice shouldn't be treated that way. Every woman has the right to be respected. Why could I awaken, but others couldn't? That's because I, Sandra, was born for something special. I could stand by and watch, but I didn't intend to do that. I made the decision to return to the country. Chapter 14. 3 years later, Alice returned to the country after completing her studies. She had already gained fame abroad, and after joining my company, her career soared even higher. Her reputation grew, and with the company's products selling well, her fame only expanded further. This success truly became a mutual accomplishment. Of course, I didn't stay idle either. Over the years, using my knowledge of the storyline, I managed to seize quite a few things from the male lead. Having been involved in business since I was young, and being intelligent and eager to learn, I quickly put Anthony in his place. He didn't dare to provoke me anymore. I can be kind, but I can also choose to be ruthless. Every time he tried to come to me, I took one of his business teams and snatched away a major client. After a couple of rounds of that, Anthony finally learned his lesson. That whole rage-filled male lead who never bows down act was only because the power pressing down on him wasn't strong enough. When the company launched its new business, I, as usual, accepted an interview. Anthony had lost the arrogance of his youth. Now, He could only sit with other entrepreneurs and watch as I shone. I glanced at him briefly before looking away, meeting Alice's focused gaze. All these years later, when she looked at me, her eyes were still full of admiration. I couldn't help but smile inwardly. No need to be modest. Female lead miss. I, Sandra, was born to change the world, and that certainly includes saving you. Story 2. Chapter 1. After the death of my billionaire husband, he left all his wealth to his white moonlight, the love of his life. All I received was a letter and a mountain of debt. He wrote, "An acceptance letter traded for 30 years as the wife of the richest man, you should count yourself lucky." I was shocked. As it turned out, I hadn't failed my university entrance exams all those years ago. Diego had secretly stolen my acceptance letter. At his funeral, debt collectors cornered me in the mourning hall, leaving me no choice but to end my life. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the time before our marriage. The college entrance exams had just ended, and the acceptance letters were still in the mail. There was still time to change everything. Tisk. You big fat pig. What else can you do besides eat? Monica clutched a fresh fish tightly in her hands, glaring at me with hostility. Her sharp, grating voice snapped me back to reality. I had been reborn. I had returned to the time before marrying Diego. His sister was still hurling insults. If it weren't to repay Uncle's life-saving kindness, my brother wouldn't even consider marrying a fat cow like you. Do you really think taking the college entrance exams like Julia will make my brother see you differently? Ha! What a joke! A stupid pig like you could never compare to Julia, and now you're trying to steal the fish my brother bought for her? Pathetic! I clenched my fists, fixing Monica with a cold, piercing stare. My voice was firm as I declared, "If your brother doesn't want to marry me so badly, then let's call off the engagement." No sooner had I spoken than Diego walked in from outside. He cast a doting glance at Monica and gently scolded her. "How can you speak to your future sister-in-law like that?" Turning to me, Diego softened his tone, though his words carried a veiled reprimand. "Monica's only 12. Why take a child's words so seriously? Our wedding is just around the corner. You wouldn't want to create a scene and become the laughingstock of everyone, would you?" I shot him a frosty look and snatched the fish from Monica's hands. "A laughingstock?" I sneered. "You barged into my house to steal my fish, and you dare call me the joke?" Diego had been standing at the door all along. I knew he was here because Julia had fallen into the water and caught a cold. He wanted my fish to help her recover. Too proud to take it himself, he sent his little sister to do his dirty work. These two siblings were nothing but trouble. This time, I wasn't about to let them walk all over me. Diego frowned, his displeasure written all over his face. "What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Aren't we all going to be family soon? Your fish is my fish, isn't it, Gloria? Don't forget, I'm only marrying you out of respect for your uncle. Watch your mouth." I placed the fish back in the tank, calmly wiped my hands, and replied coldly, "Oh, my father saved your life, and you think that makes you a saint for agreeing to marry me? How ungrateful can one person be?" In Huaihua village, my family was considered well off. I was my parents' only daughter, and they showered me with love, treating me like a princess, while other families drank soup made from rotten vegetable leaves and ate coarse millet buns. I had fish soup, pork rib stew, steamed white bread, braised pork every 3 days, and pig trotters every week. Other children grew up thin and gaunt from hunger, but my parents fed me so well I became plump and rosy-cheeked. Then one day, my father drowned saving Diego, who had fallen into the water while playing. With the breadwinner of the family gone, our situation deteriorated, and we started living off our savings. Even so, we were still better off than most. Diego, on the other hand, was nothing more than a penniless boy. Marrying me was the best thing that could have happened to him. And yet, where did he get the audacity to expect me to grovel at his feet like a simp? Chapter 2. In my previous life, Diego only managed to become the richest man because I gave him all my savings to fund his startup. I even used my connections to smooth things over for him, ensuring his business thrived. On the surface, he acted like he loved me to the bone, buying me clothes, handbags, and jewelry, but behind my back, he was entangled with Julia, The gifts I cherished were nothing more than the items Julia had rejected. Diego would casually toss them to me as if they were scraps. I foolishly believed he was being kind to me, which only made me work harder to help him build his empire. It wasn't until his death in my previous life that I learned the truth. Diego had always loved Julia. He admired her for being from the city and for her so-called refined aura. To him, I was just a fat, ugly girl from the countryside. If it weren't for my family's wealth, he never would have married me. Even in the end, he left all his assets to Julia and handed me a failing company filled with debt. He had the audacity to claim he owed me nothing. If murder weren't illegal, I would have cut out his heart just to see if it was truly black. Gloria, if you apologize now, I'll pretend you never said those things. Diego's eyes widened, burning with rage. I laughed coldly in my heart. What makes you think I'd ever apologize to you? Do you really think you're so impressive? Get out of my house right now. This time, I was determined to take back everything that belonged to me. Diego hadn't expected me to be so assertive. He stood there, speechless. For what felt like an eternity, Monica tugged at his arm and pulled him toward the door. As they walked away, she sneered, "Ha, this fat pig, without my brother. Who else would want her? Come on, Diego, let's go. She'll regret this soon enough and come crawling back to you. Then we won't be able to get rid of her." Diego nodded in agreement and left with Monica, arm in arm. Just as they stormed off, my mom came back and noticed their angry faces. She greeted them warmly. "Diego, Monica, why don't you stay for dinner?" But the two siblings didn't even look back. They left without so much as a word. My mom walked into the yard, confused, and asked me, "Gloria, what happened just now?" I didn't offer much explanation. Instead, I stared straight at her and said seriously, "Mom, I don't want to marry Diego. Can we cancel the engagement?" Hearing this, my mom was surprised but quickly took my hand, patting it gently as she said, "If my precious daughter doesn't want to marry him, then we won't go through with it." It's true that for most women in the countryside, marriage is the best outcome. But my daughter is different. You don't have to settle for that. Hearing her words, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. Looking down, I noticed another bracelet missing from her wrist. She must have just pawned it before coming home. Even though our family situation kept getting worse, my mom still spoiled me unconditionally. She didn't even ask for a reason before agreeing to my request. For that alone, I was determined to break away from Diego, get into college, and give my mom a better life. Around this time, acceptance letters from universities had started arriving. To prevent Diego from stealing mine, I decided to pay a visit to the village elder who handled all the mail. In our village, every piece of mail, big or small, including university acceptance letters, was delivered to him first. "Grandpa, I brought you some of the finest osmanthus wine." Carrying a jug of wine, I tiptoed to peek into the mail kiosk. "Osmanthus wine, let me have a taste." Grandpa suddenly poked his head out from the kiosk, sniffing the air eagerly. "Girl, you're always so thoughtful, remembering how much I love my drink." I watched as he quickly took the jug and savored it with a delighted expression. Then I asked bluntly, "Grandpa, has my acceptance letter arrived yet?" In my words, his face instantly fell. Chapter 3. Honestly, once the letters arrive, I'll deliver them to everyone's door. Why does everyone keep coming to ask? I caught onto something odd and pressed further. "You mean others have been asking too?" Grandpa took a satisfied sip of the wine, smacked his lips, and then glanced at me. "Why is that surprising? You're not the only one who took the college entrance exams. Naturally, others who applied are also asking about their letters." Hearing that, I breathed a sigh of relief. I looked at him earnestly and pleaded, "Grandpa, this letter is very important to me. Please make sure you give it to me personally. I'm counting on you." In my previous life, Diego had used the excuse of being my fiancé to take my college acceptance letter and give it to Julia, who had failed her exams. Hearing my plea, Grandpa nodded, then returned to savoring his osmanthus wine. On my way home, I happened to spot two familiar figures. Curiosity got the better of me, and I followed them from a distance. They led me to an abandoned warehouse. The place was filled with the stench of decay, and faint sunlight filtered through the broken windows. casting a dim glow inside. I quietly crept up to one of the windows and peeked in. What I saw made my stomach churn. Diego and Julia were locked in an embrace, their faces a mix of panic and passion. Diego was hastily tugging at Julia's clothes, and the soft, coquettish sounds she made caused my cheeks to flush with shame. I couldn't help but curse inwardly. What a shameless pair of scoundrels. So they've been involved this early on. My heart sank like a stone. I was about to leave when their conversation caught my attention. Julia's voice was sweet and delicate as she said, "Diego, my parents said I can only return to the city if I get into college." Diego, ever eager to please her, smiled and replied, "Our Julia is so capable, you're sure to pass." The next moment, Julia hesitated briefly, then pouted and added, "But I feel like I didn't do well. If I fail, I won't be able to go back to the city, and I can't take you with me to build a future there." Hearing this, Diego became visibly anxious. "Don't worry, you won't fail. I heard Gloria did pretty well on the exam. If she gets accepted, I'll steal her acceptance letter for you." There was a hint of greed in his voice. Julia playfully protested, "Diego, isn't that a bit much? Gloria is still your fiancée in name. How could you steal her acceptance letter?" Diego let out a cold laugh, sneering, "Fiancé? What a joke! That fat pig? If it weren't for her family's wealth, I wouldn't waste my time on her. When it comes to a wife, I need someone as charming and delicate as you." "Julia!" Diego burst out laughing, his voice echoing in the empty warehouse. Julia giggled too, promising, "Don't worry, Diego. Once I'm back in the city, I'll help you make a fortune." I turned away in disbelief, staring back at the two of them entwined in the warehouse. My heart felt as if it were being torn apart. "Diego. Oh Diego, what a self-serving man you are. Everything you've done, from agreeing to marry me to secretly consorting with Julia, has been for your own selfish ambitions. The mere sight of you disgusts me." Still, they weren't entirely wrong about one thing. The road to love is indeed harder for someone overweight. Men are visual creatures. They'll always prefer women with a slender, alluring figure. But being overweight isn't just about appearances, it's exhausting to the point that walking a few steps leaves me out of breath. For my health, if nothing else, I must lose weight. Chapter 4. After hearing my plan, my mom felt heartbroken for me, but she still supported me wholeheartedly. There was no gym equipment in the village, so I started waking up early every morning to run laps around the mountain. The dew on the roadside grass glistened like tiny jewels under the sunlight. Halfway through my run, I suddenly heard faint groans coming from the bushes. Curious, I went closer and discovered a young man lying there, severely injured and bleeding profusely. His clothes were clearly not something a rural villager could afford. The fabric looked like top-tier, custom-made material. A large pool of blood had already formed beneath him. If he wasn't treated soon, he wouldn't survive. The nearest clinic was at the village entrance, about a mile away. With no tools nearby to carry him, I had no choice but to hoist him onto my back and run toward the clinic. Luckily, the clinic had a car, and I helped load him in so we could rush him to the hospital. On the way, he briefly regained consciousness. With gratitude in his eyes, he weakly asked for my name, promising to repay me someday. Guessing that he wasn't an ordinary person and might be a useful connection in the future, I truthfully replied, "I'm Gloria from Huayhua village. You don't need to thank me, I just happened to pass by. Helping others is one of our traditional virtues." After all, hearing this, he nodded slightly before closing his eyes again in exhaustion. After getting him to the hospital and paying the fees, I left quickly, worried that my mom would be worried sick if I got home too late. When I arrived back home, I ran into Grandpa delivering mail. With a big grin, he announced, "Girl, I really underestimated you this time. Here, take it, your acceptance letter." I waited at your gate just to make sure I could hand it to you personally. My hands trembled as I took the red, celebratory envelope. I could hardly believe that, this time, my acceptance letter had made it to me without a hitch. "Thank you, Grandpa. Please stay for lunch, I'll pour you some osmanthus wine." I was so overwhelmed with gratitude that I insisted he join us for a meal. Grandpa shook his head and replied, "Another time. Maybe I need to leave town for a few days." With that, he chuckled and walked off. I sat on my bed, clutching the acceptance letter, too excited to contain myself. I couldn't wait for my mom to come back so I could surprise her. Not long after, the sound of a commotion came from the yard. Gloria, are you trying to back out of our engagement? Hearing Diego's voice, I quickly tucked the acceptance letter under my pillow before heading outside. You haven't brought meat to my family these past few days. Are you trying to call off the wedding? As soon as I reached the doorway, I heard his disgusting words. Without hesitation, I grabbed a broom nearby and swung it at him. You've got some nerve. Living off me like a parasite, taking my meat, taking my fish, and offering them up to Julia while acting all high and mighty? I don't owe you a damn thing. Exposed. Diego's expression darkened, his brows furrowing in anger. Pointing at me, he shouted, Gloria, you've really grown bold, haven't you? How many times do I have to tell you? Julia and I share a pure, revolutionary friendship. Stop making baseless accusations, will you? Before I could retort, a loud thud came from outside the gate. Diego cleared his throat and said, Anyway, I have something to take care of. I'll be going now. Don't forget to bring meat to my house this afternoon. I cast a suspicious glance at Diego, sensing that something was off. The next second, like a bolt of lightning, I rushed into the house and grabbed my pillow, only to find my acceptance letter missing. Chapter 5. Realizing what had happened, I shouted at the top of my lungs, Stop right there! I dashed outside and, as expected, saw Diego and Julia walking away together. My heart sank as the realization hit me. So that's why Diego had suddenly shown up. Acting so hurried to leave, it was all a setup. He'd conspired with that sneaky rat to steal my acceptance letter. Grabbing the broom, I stormed after them, intercepting their path with fiery determination. Julia's eyes widened in panic when she saw me. She instinctively hid her left hand behind Diego's back. Fury surged through me, and without a second thought, I raised my hand and slapped her across the face. Smack! The crisp sound of the slap echoed, drawing the attention of nearby villagers, who started gathering around us. Julia's face flushed red as she held her cheek, retreating behind Diego and bursting into tears. Gloria, are you out of your mind? Why did you hit Julia? You're such a shrew. I must have been cursed for 8 lifetimes to be engaged to you. Diego shielded Julia protectively, glaring at me with a mix of anger and disgust. Resting the broom on my shoulder, I let out a cold laugh. Oh, so you still remember you're my fiancé? Huh? That's why you call her Julia so sweetly, but call me by my full name, right? And that's why you helped her steal your fiancé's acceptance letter, isn't it? My words caused an uproar among the villagers. What's going on? Stealing an acceptance letter? Can't be true. Gloria spends all her time eating and chasing after Diego. How could she even manage to pass the college entrance exams? Exactly. Julia's a city girl from a well-educated family. She wouldn't need to steal anything from Gloria. The crowd grew larger, and even the village head, puffing on his pipe, made his way over. The village head glanced at the tense scene, his cloudy eyes settling on me. Girl, you're accusing Julia of stealing your acceptance letter. Do you have any proof? Hearing this, Julia's confidence surged. She peeked out from behind Diego and boldly retorted, Exactly. Gloria, you're accusing me of theft. Do you have any evidence? Diego looked around at the villagers, noticing that most of them sided with him. A smug grin spread across his face as he sneered. Ha, Gloria, admit it, you're just jealous that Julia is better than you. With that pig brain of yours, you probably failed the exams and lost your mind from the shock. Looking at Diego's shameless face, I wanted nothing more than to lunge at him and bite him just to vent my frustration. Nonsense. The acceptance letter was handed to me personally by Grandpa. Unfortunately, Grandpa wasn't in the village now. If he were, this whole mess could be cleared up with just a few words. Diego sneered. Well, since Grandpa isn't here, of course, you can say whatever you want, can't you? Hearing this, I clenched my fists tightly. Julia didn't pass her exams and wanted to return to the city, so she stole my acceptance letter. And you filthy scumbag, wanted to go with her to build a future in the city, so you helped her steal it. At these words, The crowd exploded once again. You know, I always thought Diego and Julia were a bit too close. Doesn't seem like just revolutionary friendship to me. Well, Julia is tall and slim, and let's face it, prettier than Gloria. No wonder Diego would make a mistake. She's been hiding herself this whole time, avoiding everyone. Maybe there really is something shady going on. Chapter 6. The village head's sharp gaze swept over Diego and Julia. He spoke in a stern voice. Julia, it's broad daylight. Why are you hiding behind someone else's fiancé? If you've been wronged, as village head, I'll make sure justice is served. Seeing the villagers' suspicions grow, Julia panicked and shrank further behind Diego, looking at him desperately for help. Diego swallowed nervously and stammered. Julia. Her clothes are torn. It's not convenient for her to. At that, the villagers exchanged knowing glances and tactfully looked away. Even the village head, trying to mediate, turned to me and said, "This involves a young woman's reputation. Why don't we let her go home and change her clothes first? We can settle the matter of the acceptance letter afterward." Let her go home? If she went home, who knows where she'd hide my acceptance letter? At least now, I was certain it was still on them. Seeing them about to slip away, I let out a cold laugh, cupped my hands around my mouth, and shouted loudly, "Well, isn't this a curious sight? If her clothes are torn and she's worried about her reputation, why isn't she hiding behind me? Another girl? Instead, she's cowering behind a young man. Look at how close they're standing, so cozy with each other. Truly a fine pair. If we didn't know better, we'd think they were a couple." Hearing this, the villagers began gossiping, pointing fingers at Diego and Julia. My loud voice had even attracted Monica, who came running over from the riverbank where she'd been washing clothes. She stood with her hands on her hips, positioning herself protectively in front of Julia and Diego, and sneered, "Ha, you fat cow. Your mind is just as filthy as you are. My brother is just being a good Samaritan. Of course, he would help Julia if he saw her in trouble." With Monica's backing, Diego's confidence grew. He cast me a condescending glance and added smugly, "Exactly. I'm just a kind-hearted man helping a comrade in need. You're slandering us like this because you've got your eye on some other man and want to ruin our engagement. Isn't that right?" Hearing him turn the tables on me like this, I was so furious that I swung my broom and charged toward him. But before I could reach them, the village head stepped in and blocked me. Taking a puff of his pipe, he glanced sternly between us. "The priority now is to find out whether Julia took the acceptance letter. All this wild speculation is improper and uncalled for." The village head was highly respected, and his words carried weight. The other villagers nodded in agreement. The village head's right. Whether the letter was stolen or not, a search will clear it up. "Julia, you've been hiding behind Diego this whole time. It's only natural for people to suspect you. Why not let someone search you? It's all women here, so there's nothing to be embarrassed about." I raised an eyebrow and slowly advanced toward Julia. Her right hand was almost entirely hidden behind Diego's body, if there wasn't something suspicious. Who would believe it? But Monica, ever relentless, blocked my path, refusing to let me get close. Who knows what kind of malicious plan you have in mind? What if you use the search as an excuse to frame Julia? "I'll do the search," Monica declared, spinning around and reaching out to act. But I was quicker, grabbing her wrist firmly before she could touch Julia. "Hold it right there. Anyone with eyes can see your bias toward Julia. What makes you think you're the right person to handle this?" Monica tried to yank her hand free, but the difference in our strength was too great. She couldn't budge me an inch. "Then who do you suggest should do it?" she snapped, glaring at me defiantly. Chapter 7. At that moment, an elderly widow from the crowd stepped forward. "I'll do it. I'm not related to any of you, so no one's more suitable than me." The widow was known for her solitary nature and impartiality, since she had no reason to favor anyone. The villagers agreed she was the best choice. As the widow slowly approached Julia and raised her hand to start the search, Julia recoiled in fear. Realizing the villagers wouldn't relent, she quickly pulled out her right hand, revealing a red-lined envelope in her palm. "Here, this is the acceptance letter you've been so obsessed with." Julia angrily threw the envelope at my face. showing no fear despite being caught red-handed. I didn't have time to think about her reaction. I grabbed the envelope and tore it open, only to find a blank sheet of paper inside. Seeing this, Monica sneered at me and taunted. "Well, would you look at that? You really don't cry until you see the coffin. Huh? Now you can see for yourself. What acceptance letter? I think you failed the exams, and that's why it's just a blank sheet of paper." Julia was only being kind. She hid the envelope to spare your feelings, but you just had to make a scene. You ungrateful pig. Beside her, Julia played along, wiping away tears as if she were the victim. Her voice quivered as she sobbed. "Gloria, I only wanted to spare you the pain of knowing you didn't pass. I was worried you'd be heartbroken, so I did this for you." Her words trailed off as she broke into dramatic sobs, eliciting sympathetic murmurs from the crowd. Diego glared at me with fury in his eyes and demanded, "Apologize to Julia." I let out a cold laugh and replied calmly, "Oh, I didn't know schools started sending blank sheets of paper as acceptance letters. Is that a new policy? If I had really failed, they wouldn't send anything at all. Why go through the trouble of sending an empty envelope? This is clearly your doing. You switched out the real letter." I held up the envelope with my name on it, my voice unwavering as I confronted them. Seeing my refusal to back down, Diego's gaze turned unusually conflicted. "Gloria, you've changed. You used to be so obedient. What happened to you?" By obedient, he meant the old me, who used to chase after him shamelessly, begging to marry him. The me who gave him fish and meat from my family's pantry without expecting anything in return. The me who watched him fawn over Julia, convinced it was just revolutionary friendship, and foolishly handed over my acceptance letter and my entire family fortune. Diego had always been selfish. Now that I no longer catered to his every whim, no longer indulged him or tolerated his overbearing, arrogant sister, he didn't know how to handle it. I didn't answer Diego's question. Instead, I responded coldly, "Our engagement has long been void. My mom already spoke to your parents about it. Since you seem unaware, let me make it clear one more time. Also, give me back my acceptance letter." Hearing this, Diego's face darkened, his expression contorted with anger. His bloodshot eyes bore into mine, a hint of obsessive madness gleaming in them. "You don't want to marry me? Who else would want you? Stop dreaming about getting into college and moving to the city. You're only fit to stay in this small village and be my wife." Just then, a commanding voice rang out from behind the crowd. "Quite the arrogant tone you've got there. I wasn't aware that, even in these modern times, a woman's marriage couldn't be her own decision." Chapter 8. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. A man with sharp, striking features and an air of authority was walking toward us. "Miss Gloria, are you all right?" he asked, his tone filled with concern as his gaze landed on me. The sight of this handsome man caring about me made Monica jump up in anger. She pointed at me and screeched, "Aw, so that's why you've been acting so bold lately, even wanting to break off the engagement with my brother. Turns out you've been seeing another man behind his back." The villagers began murmuring among themselves. Tisk. This man looks so refined and well off. Why would he be interested in Gloria? Gloria sure has some tricks up her sleeve to snag such a handsome man. Well, he's clearly better than Diego. No wonder she suddenly doesn't want to get married anymore. Hearing the chatter, Diego's gaze turned sharp as he looked at me with disdain. "Have you even taken a good look at yourself? With a body like that, you think you're worthy of someone like him? Or is it possible that he's after something else entirely and not you as a person?" Diego narrowed his eyes, his words dripping with insinuation. I was so furious I felt like smoke was about to come out of my ears. Without thinking, I swung my broom at him, only for him to catch it midair. "What's this? Did I hit the nail on the head? And now you're angry out of embarrassment? Our engagement was arranged while we were still in the womb. You think you can back out of it? I won't allow it. And as for this so-called acceptance letter, it's just part of your fantasy to run off with your lover, isn't it?" As soon as he finished speaking, the sharp sound of a slap echoed through the air. Everyone turned toward the source of the noise and saw the handsome man delivering a crisp slap across Diego's face. Diego, accustomed to being a tyrant in the village, instinctively raised his hand to strike back. Before he could, a booming voice shouted, "Stop! The crowd parted as the village's stationed military commander approached. His tone stern. "Do you even know who you're standing in front of? This is Commander Luis, head of the military district." The moment those words registered, the villagers scattered, too afraid to say another word lest they bring trouble to their families. Military men were intimidating enough, but a district commander? That was someone no one dared to offend. Even Diego quickly lowered his hand. His face panicked as he stammered an apology to Luis. "Commander, forgive my blindness. Please don't hold it against me." Luis frowned in distaste, ignoring Diego entirely as he strode toward me. His sharp, authoritative aura softened instantly, his tone turning warm and friendly. "Miss Gloria, I didn't expect to come here to thank you and end up witnessing such a spectacle." The transformation from a cold-faced general to a kind gentleman was so striking. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I'd suspected that this man wasn't ordinary, but I never imagined his status would be this extraordinary. A district commander, someone with both power and influence. Seizing the opportunity, I decided to use the favor he owed me to my advantage. "Commander." She stole my acceptance letter and hid it, and Diego here acted as her accomplice, even resorting to verbal attacks and trying to force me into marriage. "Please, Commander, help me seek justice." I knelt down as I spoke, but Luis was quick to catch me, pulling me back to my feet. "There's no need for such formalities. If what you say is true, I will ensure justice is served." Hearing this, Julia, who had been trying to shrink into the background, began trembling like a leaf. She hadn't expected a simple village girl like me to draw the attention of a military district commander. If I were just a powerless country bumpkin, stealing my acceptance letter and having Diego placate me with a few sweet words would have been enough to brush everything under the rug. After all, in the village, the best outcome for a woman was to marry a hardworking man and settle down. But now, things had spiraled out of control. Julia didn't know how to salvage the situation. Seeing Luis's striking, commanding presence, a new idea crossed her mind. Chapter 9. Commander, you may not know, but everyone here knows Gloria isn't cut out for academics. How could she possibly have been accepted to college? This is all just a misunderstanding. Julia's voice was soft and delicate, as if she were trying to cast herself as a helpless damsel. Seeing this, Monica chimed in to support her. "Exactly. Julia was just being kind. She was worried Gloria would get upset seeing an empty envelope, so she quietly took it." But Gloria didn't appreciate the gesture and instead falsely accused Julia, standing off to the side. I nearly burst out laughing in anger at their shamelessness. What disgusted me even more was Julia's subtle attempts to flirt with Luis, batting her eyes and glancing at him coyly. Fortunately, Luis was a man of integrity and didn't fall for her antics at all. Only Diego, oblivious to Julia's true nature, continued to defend her, unaware that the woman he was protecting was already scheming in her own mind. "Hearsay is unreliable. Seeing is believing," Luis said coolly. "We'll know the truth with a search." At his command, the station commander directed the soldiers to surround them, and the female officers stepped forward to conduct the search. Julia shrank back, her eyes brimming with tears as she looked at Luis, silently pleading with him. But Luis wasn't one to pity her type and didn't spare her a second glance. She then turned her gaze to Diego, silently begging for his help. But Diego, under the oppressive stare of a military commander, looked as timid as a quail, completely useless. Finally, from the inner pocket of Julia's blouse, the officers retrieved the acceptance letter, folded neatly into a small square, with nowhere left to hide. Julia admitted her crime, collapsing to her knees in front of me. "Gloria, I beg you, please give me this spot. Without the acceptance letter, I can't go back to the city. I promise that once I return, I'll repay you generously. Please, just let me have this chance. After all, you're going to marry Diego anyway. Going to college would just be a waste of time for you. But for me, this is my only chance to leave." Before I could even respond, the villagers began hurling insults at her. "Bah! What kind of educated youth steals like a common thief? I thought people from the city were supposed to be cultured, but she's black-hearted through and through. What scholarly family? She's not half as capable as our rural girls." Gloria earned her spot fair and square. while all Julia does is play dirty tricks. As the situation unraveled, Diego's expression grew more calculating, his eyes narrowing as though plotting his next move. Luis's hawk-like gaze locked onto him, exuding a suffocating sense of authority. Diego, the evidence is clear. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Hearing this, Diego panicked. He was just an ordinary young man from the village. If he offended Luis and became a target for the soldiers, his future would be ruined. Thinking quickly, Diego forced a smile and began inching away. I had no idea about any of this. I've been kept in the dark too. I only helped Julia cover herself because her clothes were torn. I didn't know she would do something like this. Then, turning to me, he gave a fawning smile and said, Gloria, I had no idea you were so capable. You really got into college. Don't worry. Go ahead and focus on your studies. I'll stay here and wait for you to come back. No sooner had he finished speaking than Julia let out a shriek and lunged at him. Chapter 10. Ah, you heartless scoundrel. Don't you dare try to cut ties with me now. You're the one who said Gloria was naive and easy to fool, that all I had to do was sweet-talk her a little, and she wouldn't care about this. It was you who distracted Gloria and gave me the chance to steal the letter. Now that it's all blown up, you want to wash your hands of it? No way. Julia's outburst sent the crowd into a frenzy. Tisk. What kind of man does something like this? And he thinks he's good enough to marry someone? What a joke! If Gloria's mom doesn't agree to this marriage, neither would I. The murmurs and jeers grew louder, and Diego's heart pounded in his chest. He shot Julia a warning glare, his expression darkening. You've already ruined your reputation. Must you drag me down with you? Grabbing her by the collar, he leaned in and whispered something only the two of them could hear. Whatever he said seemed to shatter her completely. Julia slumped to the ground like a wilted flower, her face pale with despair. She confessed to stealing the acceptance letter, claiming it was her doing alone. Luis, the highest-ranking and most respected person present, unfolded the retrieved letter and handed it to me personally. Congratulations, Miss Gloria, on your well-deserved success. Overcome with emotion, I took the letter, tears streaming down my face as I choked out. Thank you, Commander. Luis patted my shoulder, his voice gentle. This was yours to begin with. No need to thank me. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. Yes, this was mine all along. I had simply reclaimed what was rightfully mine, so why couldn't I stop crying? Seeing me in such a state, Luis, unconcerned about his title or image, pulled a silk handkerchief from his pocket and began to wipe my tears. The villagers, moved by the scene, chimed in with their congratulations. Gloria really is something special. The first college student from our village, a golden phoenix rising from our humble little village, with Gloria making it big. Maybe we'll all benefit in some way. Amid the chorus of praise, Diego thickened his skin and sidled up to me. Heh. Diego laughed foolishly, his grin plastered across his face. Gloria, congratulations on getting into college. Don't worry, your tuition and living expenses are on me. I'll cover everything. No problem. I could see right through his scheme. Now that Julia was no longer of use to him, he was trying to latch onto me, hoping to use my connection to Luis to his advantage. I let out a cold laugh, just about to put him in his place when Luis beat me to it. Miss Gloria's education is none of your concern. She is my benefactor, and I will personally ensure that all her needs, food, clothing, and expenses, are taken care of. As for you, if you continue to claim to be her fiancé, don't blame me for taking action. Luis's warning was sharp and unyielding, and Diego's face turned visibly pale. He forced a bitter smile and stammered, Why yes. I was wrong. I won't do it again. I swear. Terrified of angering Luis further and inviting his wrath, Diego slapped himself as he apologized, his voice trembling. I shook my head and sighed, exasperated. How had I, in my past life, ever fallen for someone as spineless as Diego, insisting that I wouldn't marry anyone but him? Perhaps it was due to the mindset I had back then. In my previous life, I believed that a woman needed to depend on a man, that a woman's happiness could only be achieved by marrying a good husband, having children, and tending to household affairs. That's why, once I learned of my engagement to Diego, I prioritized him in everything, giving him all the best I could offer. Even my decision to take the college entrance exams in my past life wasn't for myself, it was to prove to him that I was better than Julia and more deserving of his love. But in this life, I finally understood. A woman can stand tall and strong in this world, relying on no one but herself. Chapter 11. After thanking Luis, I happened to run into my mom coming home. Seeing the crowd of villagers gathered at our gate, she asked curiously, "What's going on here? Why aren't you all at work? Why are you crowding around our house?" The villagers, in unspoken agreement, didn't mention a word about the stolen acceptance letter. Instead, they all cupped their hands in congratulations. "Congratulations! Your family has raised a golden phoenix. Your daughter got into college. Sister-in-law, your blessings are just beginning." Hearing this, my mom couldn't stop smiling. She enthusiastically invited everyone to stay for a meal, wanting to thank them for their years of kindness and support. Even Luis, despite his initial hesitation, couldn't resist my mom's warm hospitality and stayed to eat with us. The villagers brought contributions from their homes. One family brought freshly butchered pork, another brought rice, another vegetable oil, and so on. Together, they created a bountiful spread for a celebratory feast. Diego, his sister Monica, and Julia, too ashamed to face anyone, had quietly slipped away long before. After the meal, my mom insisted that I toast Luis. She said, "Commander, thank you so much for coming to celebrate my daughter. It's truly an honor for our family." Luis stood up without a hint of arrogance, raised his glass, and replied, "Your daughter is an exceptional person. It's my honor to know her." Hearing this, my mom beamed with joy. Before leaving, Luis gave me his phone number, telling me I could reach out to him anytime if I needed help. He said it was his way of repaying the favor for saving his life. After sending everyone off, I lay in bed, clutching my acceptance letter and grinning ear to ear. With 2 months left before the semester started, I had time to spare. I began experimenting with vegetable juices to lose weight. After a month of dedicated effort, I transformed from a chubby girl into a slender, elegant young woman. Even my mom was astonished when she saw me. She couldn't believe that the tall, slim beauty in front of her was her formerly plump daughter. The villagers were equally stunned by my transformation. News of my weight loss spread quickly, even to neighboring villages. Many young women came from miles around to ask me for advice. Then, an idea struck me, a business opportunity. I rushed to the local convenience store to call Luis and shared my plan to produce and sell vegetable-based weight loss drinks. Luis was very supportive and even came to Huayhua village to discuss the details with me in person. With his help, my business quickly took off. And before long, I was earning a fortune. The first thing I did after making money was to buy back all the jewelry my mom had pawned over the years to support our family. My mom had always loved beautiful things, and pawning those pieces had broken her heart. But for me, she gritted her teeth and sold almost all the jewelry my dad had gifted her. When she saw the jewelry again, she was so overwhelmed that she covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her face. She hugged me tightly and sobbed for a long time. It wasn't until she calmed down that she finally let me go. With trembling hands, she tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear and said softly, "My precious daughter has grown up." Her eyes shone with tears, not of sadness or grievance, but of happiness. She was happy that her daughter hadn't spent her life trapped in the village, or married a loveless man to waste away her years. But as I thrived, it naturally stirred jealousy in some people. One moonless, windy night, I was on my way home after closing a business deal when a sharp pain struck the back of my head. Before I could react, everything went black. When I regained consciousness, I found myself lying in a dark, damp, and abandoned warehouse. My head throbbed from the blow I'd received earlier. Diego's twisted face loomed over me, his eyes filled with malice. "Humph, you're awake." His voice was low and menacing. I stared at him in terror, struggling against the tight ropes that bound me. "Diego, let me go. If you try anything, you'll regret it." He leaned in close, his breath hot against my face. "Things would have been fine if you'd just obediently married me. But why couldn't you listen? Why did you have to go to that college? You're mine, you've always been mine." And you always will be. Forget about university. Just stay here and wait to marry me. Otherwise, today will be the day you die. Chapter 12. Diego leaned closer, greedily inhaling my scent. His voice lowered to a sinister whisper. I didn't expect you to look this good after losing weight. So if I go ahead and do what needs to be done a little early, it shouldn't be a problem, right? As he spoke, his hands began to wander. I shouted angrily, Diego, you despicable coward. If you dare touch me, I swear you'll regret it. My resistance only darkened Diego's expression further. He raised the wooden stick in his hand, swinging it menacingly in front of me. You won't drink the toast, so don't blame me for forcing it down your throat. Just as the standoff reached its peak, the sound of footsteps echoed from the entrance of the warehouse. Hope surged in me. I thought a villager had discovered this place. I immediately screamed for help. Diego, startled, quickly clamped his hand over my mouth, his eyes flashing with a threatening glare. But then, Julia's silhouette appeared in the doorway. The hope in my eyes instantly dimmed. Julia strolled toward me, a twisted smile plastered on her face. Ha, so you're finally getting what you deserve. If you had just done what you were supposed to, none of this would have happened. Wouldn't it have been better to hand over the acceptance letter and marry Diego like a good girl? Her voice was venomous as she spat the words at me. I glared at her, spitting in her direction. Pa, you two disgusting rats. I've known all along you've been sneaking around together. And now you want me to lay down my future for you? Over my dead body. Julia's composure cracked at my words, her smug demeanor replaced by anger and unease. Julia turned to Diego with a sharp glare. Stop wasting time. Just kill her already. Otherwise, neither of us will come out of this unscathed. Diego, however, didn't budge. Instead, he stood in front of me, blocking her path, and let out a cold laugh. Why would I kill her? She's my golden goose. If I marry her, I'll have wealth and luxury for the rest of my life. Hearing this, Julia frowned deeply. What do you mean by that? Didn't you say I was the one you loved the most? The next second, Julia let out a sudden laugh. She pointed at me and yelled, Don't tell me you've fallen for this little temptress. When she was fat, you said I was the one you loved most. Now that she's slim and attractive, you don't love me anymore. Is that it? Diego no longer bothered to pretend. That's right. I don't like you anymore. He admitted bluntly. You're useless now. You can't go back to the city. What good are you to me? Gloria, on the other hand, got into college, will work in the city one day, and she's already making a fortune with her weight loss vegetable drinks. Greed gleamed in Diego's eyes as he spoke. Julia, enraged, stormed forward and slapped him across the face. Diego, are you even human? Is your love nothing more than a business transaction? Diego touched his reddened cheek and let out a sinister chuckle. Ha, and what about your love? Was it ever noble? You came to me just to steal Gloria's acceptance letter so you could get back to the city, didn't you? He ruthlessly exposed Julia's true motives. The next second, he issued a cold order. We both had our own agendas. Let's call it even. Now get out. I've got important things to do, and I don't need you hanging around to watch and learn. His threatening glare sent chills down Julia's spine. Though she was reluctant, she turned and left. The warehouse grew eerily quiet, leaving just Diego and me. Diego looked at me with a predatory grin, rubbing his hands together. I didn't expect you to look this good after losing weight. Don't be scared. Soon enough, you'll feel really good. After tonight, just accept your fate and prepare to be my wife. With that, he lunged toward me. I rolled on the ground to dodge his attack, yelling at the top of my lungs, Help! Somebody! Help me! Furious that I had escaped, Diego stomped down on my stomach, pinning me to the ground. His large hand grabbed at my clothes, tearing at them as I struggled beneath him. Chapter 13. Stop shouting. This is an abandoned warehouse far from the village. No one will hear you. Just as I was sinking into despair, the warehouse doors were violently kicked open. The captain's tall, commanding figure appeared in the doorway. His eyes blazed with fury, and his sharp gaze locked onto Diego. What do you think you're doing? The captain's booming voice was filled with authority. Seeing him felt like seeing a savior. I cried out desperately, Captain, Help me! He tried to assault me." Hearing my words, the captain rushed to my side and swiftly drew his military knife. With a few precise cuts, he freed me from the ropes. The next moment, he turned and delivered a resounding slap to Diego's face. Smack! The sound echoed through the warehouse. Diego staggered back a few steps, his previously smug demeanor vanishing in an instant. "Captain, I didn't mean to," Diego stammered, his face pale with fear. The captain let out a cold snort, showing no interest in Diego's excuses. First, you helped Julia steal Gloria's acceptance letter, and now you've escalated to attempting assault. How could Huayhua Village produce such a disgrace like you? If I hadn't happened to pass by tonight, who knows what you might have done. Once I was free, I immediately rushed behind the captain, seeking his protection. After delivering a few more slaps to Diego's face, the captain turned to me and asked, "What do you want to do with him?" After all, in situations like this, it's the young woman who suffers the most. Your reputation could be affected, no matter what. I appreciated his consideration, but the fire in my heart burned brighter than any fear of ruined reputation. But I wasn't afraid. I was determined to make Diego face the consequences of his actions. I chose not to forgive him and reported him. With the captain as my witness, Diego was formally punished, given a disciplinary record, and jailed for 15 days. With a criminal record, his chances of advancing in life were as good as gone. In the gentle breeze of autumn, I embarked on my university journey, walking down a path lined with golden leaves. I felt as if nature itself was crowning me for the next chapter of my life. One crisp morning, I opened a letter from my mom in the school library. The letter revealed Diego's downfall after his release. He had become completely despondent, turning to drinking and gambling and amassing an enormous debt. He even sold his own sister, Monica, to settle part of it. The man who bought her was said to be a violent pervert who delighted in torturing women. Neighbors reported hearing Monica's anguished screams every night. Unable to endure the abuse any longer, Monica threw herself into the river just days later. Diego, beaten to a pulp by debt collectors, ended up in the hospital, where he coincidentally ran into Julia during her medical exam. Julia's family had used their connections to secure her a transfer to a city library job if her health check came back clean. However, her exam revealed she was pregnant. She planned to quietly terminate the pregnancy but was caught by Diego, who declared the child was his and tried to cling to her. The scandal reached Julia's parents, who were mortified. With Julia pregnant, there was no way she could return to the city. To save face, her parents reluctantly arranged for her to marry Diego. Before the wedding, Diego pretended to be a model son-in-law, earning the trust of Julia's parents. But after the wedding, his true nature was exposed. He abused Julia daily, forcing her to return to her parents' home to beg for money to pay off his gambling debts. Julia's parents, unable to bear the humiliation, cut ties with her completely. With no financial support, Diego's abuse intensified. He even caused Julia to miscarry. Losing the child drove Julia mad. A few days later, she hanged herself in their home. Villagers helped organize Julia's funeral and even pooled some money to give to Diego, hoping he would turn over a new leaf. Instead, he gambled it all away the very next day, incurring even more debt. In the end, Diego was found drowned in the village pond. Some villagers whispered that his sister had come back to claim him. After finishing the letter, I felt a pang of melancholy. The misfortunes that befell Diego and Julia were the direct results of the seeds of evil they had sown. I picked up a pen and paper, writing a letter back to my mother, asking about life at home and her health. By the time I left the library, the sky was painted in hues of orange and red by the setting sun. The gentle breeze caressed my face as I strolled down the campus pathways, my heart as calm as the serene landscape around me. In this life, I was simply living the life that had always been rightfully mine.